The story begins on a cold morning, when life seemed ordinary, quiet, and predictable. Children filled the hallways of the school, their laughter echoing through walls that had sheltered generations of dreams. But what nobody knew was that within minutes, that laughter would turn into desperate cries for help. And at the center of this unimaginable tragedy, one man would be forced to make a choice so powerful that it would redefine the meaning of courage. He wasn't a firefighter, nor a soldier, just an ordinary man walking past the school that morning. But destiny was about to test him in a way that would ignite a story the world would never forget. It started with a faint smell of smoke drifting out of a window. At first, people thought it was nothing more than a faulty heater or a burnt lunch from the cafeteria. But within moments, the smoke thickened, curling into the sky like a dark warning. Then came the crackling sound of flames consuming wood, fast and ruthless. Panic swept through the classrooms as teachers rushed to guide the children out. Yet not everyone could escape. Some classrooms were trapped, the doors blocked by fire, and the screams of terrified children could be heard echoing through the chaos. And that was the moment he appeared, standing at the school gates, frozen for a second, his heart pounding as he realized that he couldn't just walk away. He was not supposed to be there that day. He had taken a different route to work, something he rarely did, because of an inexplicable urge to walk past the old school building. Life has strange ways of placing us where we are needed the most, and on that day, it was no coincidence. He saw the smoke, the fire, the terrified parents who had already gathered outside, powerless to reach their children. And before anyone could even ask for help, he was running toward the flames. People shouted for him to stop, begged him not to go in. But he didn't listen. Something inside him told him that if he didn't act right now, lives would be lost forever. The heat inside was unbearable. The smoke stung his eyes, making it almost impossible to see. The hallway was filled with choking black air, and the sound of children crying pierced through his chest like a knife. He covered his mouth with his sleeve and pushed forward, every step feeling heavier than the last. He had no protective gear, no plan, only the raw determination not to let those young voices be silenced by the fire. He kicked open the first classroom door he could reach and found a group of children huddled together, their teacher trying desperately to keep them calm. Their eyes lit up with a fragile spark of hope the moment they saw him. In that instant, he became their lifeline. Guiding the children out was harder than he imagined. The fire spread so quickly that hallways that were clear seconds ago turned into burning traps. He had to lead them through the smoke, covering their faces with his jacket, urging them not to stop. Fear gripped them, but his voice, calm, strong, reassuring, kept them moving. One by one, he pushed them out through a broken window, where other adults rushed to pull them to safety. The relief of knowing that these children were out was overwhelming, but he knew he couldn't stop there. He could still hear more voices. There were still others waiting for someone brave enough to reach them. The second classroom was worse. Flames crawled up the walls, and the air was suffocating. He stumbled more than once, coughing violently, his chest burning from the smoke. His body begged him to give up, to turn back, but his heart refused. Inside, more children clung to their desks, frozen by terror. "Follow me," he shouted, his voice breaking but determined. They moved slowly, some too scared to even take a step, but he carried them, lifted them, anything to bring them closer to the exit. Time seemed endless inside that burning prison, yet he fought with everything he had, pulling each child toward survival. Just as he was about to leave, he heard it, the faintest cry, hidden under the roar of the flames. It was coming from the corner of the room, where smoke was thickest. He could have ignored it, told himself he had done enough, that he had already saved so many. But something inside him wouldn't allow that. He crawled on the floor, searching blindly until his hand touched a small arm. A little girl was trapped under a fallen piece of wood, her tiny body trembling with fear. With every ounce of strength left in him, he lifted it, freeing her. She clung to him desperately, and he carried her out, shielding her from the fire as if she were his own child. When they finally reached the outside, the crowd erupted in tears and applause. Parents rushed to embrace their children, unable to believe they were alive. Some tried to thank him, but he collapsed to the ground, exhausted, his body shaking, lungs filled with smoke. Yet, despite the pain, he smiled faintly. He had done it. He had given these children another chance to live, to dream, to grow. The image of him stumbling out of the flames, carrying the last child in his arms, would be etched in everyone's memory forever. It wasn't just an act of bravery, it was the kind of sacrifice that defines what it means to be truly human. In the days that followed, his story spread like wildfire across the community, then across the nation, and eventually, the entire world. Headlines called him a hero, but those who were there knew he was more than that. He was proof that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary courage. He had no obligation to risk his life, no guarantee that he would make it out alive, but he chose to act when others hesitated. And that choice saved countless lives. The children he carried out of that burning building will grow up remembering not just the fire, but the man who walked through it for them. Years later, those same children would tell their own families about the day their lives were saved. They would speak of the fear, the smoke, the fire, but most of all, they would speak of him. The man who reminded the world that heroism is not about power, or strength, or even fearlessness. It is about love. Love for life, love for strangers, love that burns brighter than any flame. And while scars may remain, both on the building and on his body, the greatest legacy he left was the lesson that in the darkest moments, a single act of courage can bring light to countless lives. And so, every time you hear a story of bravery, think of this man, the one who risked everything, without hesitation, to save children he didn't even know. Ask yourself, what would you do if faced with such a choice? Would you run away, or would you step forward? His story challenges us all to realize that true greatness lies not in what we achieve for ourselves, but in what we are willing to sacrifice for others. And perhaps, one day, when life calls upon us in unexpected ways, we too will find the courage to answer. When we listen to the story of a man who risked everything to save children trapped in a burning school, we are reminded that life often tests us when we least expect it. Most of us believe that heroes are born in extraordinary circumstances, but the truth is that courage often arises in ordinary people during ordinary days. That man did not wake up thinking he would become a hero, he simply responded to the call of humanity when it screamed the loudest. In our everyday lives, we face smaller fires, moments of injustice, pain, or despair where someone needs us to step in. Maybe it's a coworker being unfairly treated, a friend battling silent struggles, or even a stranger who just needs kindness. The question we must all ask ourselves is this: will we walk past, or will we step forward? Because even if the flames aren't real, the courage required is. And sometimes, the smallest act of bravery, a kind word, a helping hand, a refusal to remain silent, can rescue someone in ways we will never fully see. What this story reveals is that the essence of courage isn't about being fearless. In fact, true bravery comes wrapped in fear. The man who entered that burning school was terrified, his lungs burned, his body weakened, his mind screamed at him to turn back. But he kept moving because his purpose was greater than his fear. In our daily lives, fear often stops us from acting: fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. We hesitate to speak up in meetings, to chase our dreams, to defend someone in need, because the flames of doubt seem too strong. Yet, this story teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Each time we choose to act in the face of fear, we become stronger, and our lives begin to reflect the quiet heroism that the world desperately needs. Another lesson we can take is about the power of sacrifice. That man risked his life for children he did not know, proving that true greatness is not measured by what we gain, but by what we are willing to give up for others. In our world today, we are often taught to prioritize success, wealth, and recognition. But real impact comes from sacrifice, giving our time to listen when it's inconvenient, offering our resources when it stretches us, or putting someone else's needs before our own when they cannot fight for themselves. Sacrifice, in its purest form, creates a ripple effect. Just as the children who were saved will carry this man's courage into their own lives, the sacrifices we make inspire others to do the same. Imagine a world where each of us chose to give just a little more of ourselves. How many hidden fires could be extinguished before they consumed someone's hope? This story also challenges us to reconsider how we define legacy. Too often, we think of legacy as something tied to wealth, achievements, or fame. But the truth is, legacy is built in the quiet choices we make daily. That man's name may fade from headlines, but his impact will live forever in the lives of those children, their families, and the generations they raise. Similarly, our legacy is not carved in stone monuments but in the lives we touch, our kindness, our courage, our willingness to love without conditions. Every time we choose compassion over indifference, we plant seeds of legacy that grow beyond our lifetime. We may never see the fruits, but we can be certain that our choices shape the world long after we are gone. Legacy isn't about being remembered by millions, it's about being remembered by the one person whose life you changed. Finally, the greatest reflection we can draw is that heroism is accessible to all of us. We may never face a burning school, but every day we encounter opportunities to be a source of light. Heroism can look like defending someone who cannot defend themselves, speaking truth when silence feels easier, or offering hope to someone who feels invisible. It's in the patience we show, the forgiveness we extend, and the empathy we practice. The fire may not always be literal, but the urgency to act is real. Each of us carries the capacity to be a hero in someone's story, whether we realize it or not. And perhaps that is the most powerful message: we don't have to wait for extraordinary circumstances to make a difference, we only need to be willing, in ordinary moments, to choose love over fear. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this powerful journey. If this story touched your heart, let it also move your actions, because each of us has the ability to bring light into someone's darkest hour. I invite you to reflect on the fires in your own world and ask yourself where your courage is needed most. And if this message inspired you, please support our community by subscribing to this channel, sharing this video with someone who needs it, and leaving your thoughts in the comments. Together, we can spread not just a story of one man's heroism, but a movement of everyday courage that changes lives.